the Supreme Court is there for, to determine when there's a conflict. Now, during that determination or prior to that determination, we must follow the law.
That's what the argument now lies.
Yes.
Because if you say that the executive is taking the laws into their hands, can they accuse the Senate of the same thing by saying, no, we have power to screen? So clearly, both of them seem to have dug their heels in. And the same thing you accuse the executive of is the same thing some say they can accuse the Senate of.
In what regard?
In the regard that they're saying that, look, we have this power, so you must, as a matter of fact, remove.
But because the law is on their side. Look, but why is the law on their side? The Constitution that you are quoting is subject to interpretation regarding the issue of extra-ministerial. There's nothing there that says the EFCC as an agency or the chairman of the EFCC shall not be subject to confirmation.
No, this is what the acting president actually said. He said that in the light of Section 171 of the 1999 Constitution, the president can retain Magu as EFCC chairman without confirmation by the Senate. That's what he said. Is that right or wrong?
I disagree with that. I disagree with it because, again, if you go to Section 171, there's no mention of EFCC there. It says extra-ministerial agency. So we have to determine that. And that determination does not rest with the executive. It rests with the judiciary. Now, the reason why I said that the law is on the side of the Senate is there's a law that says this person will be subject to this confirmation.
You're quoting the AFCC Act.
Yes.
Which they say is subject or inferior to the Constitution of the country.
It may be inferior to the Constitution, but the executive is not the one to determine and act on it. So, well, we are determined that it's inferior, so we're not going to remove him. No. That is a separation of power. That is clear violation of the separation of powers, because that power to interpret the Constitution lies with the judiciary.
How would you?
The
judiciary.
Yes.
But isn't that what the National Assembly is doing?
No, because, again, the law, the current law, is with the Senate that says the Senate is acting to the current law, what is on the table, and say, well, clearly, this law says this position is subject to confirmation. Now, the executive said, no, well, the president can do this without confirmation because of Section 171. But if you go to Section 171, it is not clear there. It doesn't mention EFCC. It says extra-ministerial. So that extra-ministerial is subject to interpretation by, not by the Senate, not by the executive, but by the judiciary. However, the Senate is acting on what the law is. Further, it was the executive that presented Magu for confirmation twice. Okay? How come they did not think about it? There have been three other chairpersons of the EFCC prior to this. They were all subject to confirmation. That is why I'm saying, if you look at the weight of evidence, it's on the Senate side.
Yeah, but
because
what if the executive,
because of the current law, which is not subject to interpretation.
What if the executive says, well, yeah, we may have presented him twice, but now we've realized our error and said, look, 171 actually allows us to do this without confirmation, so we haven't violated any court order by realizing our folly or our error.
They can't say that. Well, the reason why they can't say that again is because that's 171. Listen to the public. One side is saying 171 allows, the other one is saying no. So that 171, that section or subsection is subject to interpretation. One, we have to determine whether EFCC actually falls within that extra-ministerial agency. And two, if it's so, then there's a conflict, which must be resolved. Not by the executive, by the court. So what the executive needs to do is to go to court.
What should the Senate do?
The National should just act according to the current law.
They won't go to court?
No, they can't go to court because, you see, again, the current law subject Magu to confirmation. If there's no EFCC law saying that now...
But I thought you established that insofar as the EFCC Act is inferior to the Constitution, you have to rely on the Constitution because that is superior.
You see, again, we are sitting and say, you know, we have these rules of interpretation.
No, but is that wrong?
No, it's not wrong. But again, we're not the court. I'm not saying that law is not inferior to the Constitution. But one, is the Constitution talking about that law?
They say it is because they say EFCC reports to the office of the Minister of Justice.
Again, it's EFCC extra-ministerial. It's a commission, for instance. It's not an agency. It's a commission. You have a chairman of a commission. They sit down together to make rules and regulations regarding the enforcement of anti-corruption laws. It's a pseudo-legislative responsibility. And everywhere you look in the world, and I know people were citing these two cases in the United States, which I actually treated in Constitution 101 in law school in the US. There's a distinction between a commission and a straight agency, such as, I don't know, maybe...
Is this spelled out in this 171? Is this spelled out in our laws?
You see, that is where interpretation comes in. And we don't have...
And interpretation is subjective, insofar if it's not the court that has said it.
If it's not the court, we're just making conjectures.
What about the National Lottery Commission? How do we begin to classify that one? Because Bajabia Miller's confirmation was also rejected by the Senate.
Well, the Senate is just reacting to what the president said. And I said it here before. Again, you're playing a game of chicken with the... You know, if you go out and pronounce that the Senate has no power to confirm, and why send people over there again?
They didn't say absolutely no power to confirm. They predicated it on this section.
You know, I love the acting president. I think he's a scholar.
What they want is just the acting president must agree that they have the powers to go through according to the Constitution. But the presidency, or should I say the acting president, has not agreed to that. That the Senate doesn't have that much power.
What I'm saying is, what the acting president needs to do, or needed to do then, was to follow what the law is, not subjecting it to interpretation, because he is not the best person to interpret that Constitution. That power belongs to another aspect of this democracy, the courts. What the presidency or the acting president should have done is say, okay, fine, we will look at this, but we'll sit down with the Senate and work this out. But according to what we have on the ground now, let the Senate, they can sit down and work, let him be in acting capacity until, no, we're going to go to court on this, and so on and so on, and work it out politically. You see, between the legislature and the executive, it's politics.
Okay, now speaking about politics,
yes.
What would you say to those who say what the Senate has done is legislative activism? That there's nowhere in law where it says, no, they can actually do what they're doing at the moment, because if they are so aggrieved or think that something has gone wrong with interpretation of the law, go to court.
Now, when you say legislative activism, the legislature is elected to act. They are elected to be activists. That is why...
Activists?
Yes.
It's not lawmakers.
No, I mean, when you make law, you're acting. You're looking at the situation, trying to change it, amend it, move it forward, make it work.
No, but you know the activism what we're talking about.
Activism, well, you may say rebellious activism or something like that, where people just sit down and say, well, we're just being recalcitrant, we're not going to move further with this. And again, that is politics of it all. That is just reacting politically to assert their powers and responsibility. You can't fault them for that, because if there's conflict between these two aspects of our democracy, then is the executive. Trust me, the Senate is not going to go to court. If the executive does not like that law, that EFCC law, then propose an amendment and say, look, this is not working well. Let us propose an amendment, and they can do emergency, they can do temporary amendment, they can send it to the Senate and work with the Senate to now pass that, so we won't have this kind of situation.
Would it be wrong if they go to court, the Senate, and say, no, we think the acting president is wrong, or the executive is wrong on this one?
The thing is, the Senate, if you look at what the legislature does, they don't go to court. They just change the law. That's what they do. Why would they go to court and seek interpretation where they can change that law?
No,
it is the executive that always challenges the law. It is the executive that will go to court and say, what the Senate has done here is not right. That is one option. The other option is for the executive to propose a change to that law. That's what the executive, I mean, they can propose it. They can even put in the budget proposal and say, well, we're taking this out.